Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Flags in a Gym, a podcast dedicated to all things color guard. My name is Eric. I'm your host and resident color guard nerd. And today's episode is a mashup episode where I sat down with author Jase Peeples to discuss a few topics, including his times marching with the record-setting Blue Devils Winterguard, his young adult color guard novel, TWIRL, and more. So sit back, relax, and let's talk some color guard. Hi there, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I am sitting down with a very special guest today. He's a spinner, he's a journalist, and a author. Please welcome the wonderful Jase Peeples. Welcome on in.
Thank you. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, we've been chatting for a while to get you on, and I needed that winter break, and I'm like, I'm going to get to him. I promise I'll get to him. So here we are after the turn of the year. Before we get started, though, why don't you take about 30 seconds or so to kind of give everybody your elevator pitch of who you are and your experience in the activity.
Let's see. I got involved in my local high school down in the Central Valley of California, Turlock High School, and I just fell in love with the independent winter guards that I watched growing up. And I decided when I graduated, I was going to be one of those people. And it just so happened that Blue Devils ended up having their first independent World Guard that year, and I auditioned, and the rest was history. I marched for 3 years with Blue Devils World, and then went on to teach for many, many years afterwards, many groups across California.
That's awesome. And we are going to talk about two different topics today. So we are going to talk about Blue Devils because this is kind of like a hybrid episode. So we're kind of combining I March That Show for those of you who are aware of that series where I talked to, the woman from Bishop Kearney, and then I talked to Olivia from Woodlands and Boston Crusaders. And then you march Blue Devils 96, which is the highest scoring winter guard show in WGI history. And you also wrote a wonderful color guard book, a young adult rom-com called TWIRL. So we're going to talk about both of those today. We'll start with your time at BD, and then we'll get into the book on the second half. But before we talk about your specific history, I do kind of want to talk about just a general history of Blue Devils and see if maybe you can fill in some bits that we may not know about. But Blue Devils did have a dynasty back in the late 90s in independent world. Won 4 years straight, 95 to 98. I went checking scores. I was like, wow, they won again and again and again and again. This is on top of them winning DCI in 94, 96, and 97. Was the guard sponsored by the drum corps? I assume it was with the name, or...
It was. And I do believe there was another Blue Devils color guard, I believe in 91 and 92. I remember watching 92 specifically. But if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe that Blue Devils color guard was sponsored by the Corps specifically. I could be wrong, but I do believe that this was starting in 95, it was the first sponsored by the Corps directly since I want to say the early 80s.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, because I remember seeing that. I was like, oh, it looks like there was a Blue Devils in 92, but, Blue Devils, the Winter Guard has always been off and on, but if there's more than one, that could be why. So was there a lot of crossover with the drum corps membership? I mean, I don't know back in the day if, now everybody flies all over the country to march wherever they want to march. I don't know back in the day if it was a little more localized.
It was. People would move out, of course, but a lot of people, I would say definitely more than half, almost a majority of the people came from either having marched that summer before or a few years prior. Also, San Jose Raiders was another guard within the area, and a lot of those members had marched that winter guard for several years as well.
Oh, okay. And did you march with the drum corps as well?
I did not. I was a winter baby. There were some times where it came very close to actually just kind of like jumping in and doing drum corps, but I did feel like I often needed that time off in order to recharge because the schedule was so grueling. I know that a lot of independent world guards today, they mostly rehearse on the weekends. But back then, especially for Blue Devils, we rehearsed minimum 4 days a week, sometimes up to six, depending on what was going on. So it
Wow.
would take its toll. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was talking with Candace who marched Fantasia, and she said Fantasia was the same way. They would rehearse like Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I'm like, that is crazy. I mean, no wonder you all were winning so much at the top. I mean, you rehearsed so many hours. Yeah, I don't think I could do that schedule. And you talked about needing that time to recharge. I mean, you think about the schedule today, kids get home from drum corps August, and then winter guard auditions are the first weekend of September. I mean, they get like no time off, and then come early November, they're full practice mode until April, and then you have April camp, and then you move in May. It just never stops.
Oh, yeah. It's a lifestyle. I mean, I have so much respect for people who go from summer to winter to summer to winter, that there were several people within Blue Devils that did do that. I don't think I could do it. I'm also extremely tall. So I'm 6'7". And when I remember being on a bus in 97, and we actually drove on the drum corps buses to Arizona, where WGI was held that year. I think it was the first and only year in Phoenix. And I just remember being so miserable on that bus for like the 14, 16-hour drive, whatever it was. And I remember one of my friends turning to me and saying, I don't think you're going to like summer.
I couldn't
So
imagine. I couldn't imagine.
I took her advice.
What do you do like on a plane now? Like, because I mean, those are just getting smaller and smaller.
Oh, I just like take deep breaths and get through it as best you can.
And what a time to be 6'7", right? With all the kids, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. I hate bringing up my height now when people ask. I actually like, I can't help myself. I laugh at first and I'm like, 6'7".
Just lie and say 6'8" until the meme finally dies, and then
Right.
you can go back.
Nobody would know.
Yeah, right. No, anybody would believe you. They're looking up. I'm like, yeah, I believe it. Do you know what sparked Blue Devils to put out a Winter Guard program, like in like '95?
Yes, I do believe, and the details may be a little muggy here, but San Jose Raiders have just come off of winning 5 years in a row with their independent World Guard. And the entire Blue Devil staff taught there for the most part, with I believe TJ wasn't involved and a couple other people were not, but a core part of that staff at San Jose Raiders taught both. And I do believe that San Jose Raiders had an open guard that ended up medaling and getting promoted to World. And so they were going to have two World Guards. And rather than have two, they decided to fold the one that had been around for a while. And then Jay and Scott ended up starting Blue Devils World.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get that. I mean, we saw St. Anne's do it, and you could tell they did not want to have to do the two World Guard thing. And we've seen it with CGT, and then we have Mirage and Menage who are taking a break this year, but the same thing. They had a baby guard. They were open class, medaled, and now they're like, crap. They're both in World.
Yeah, and San Jose Raiders was quite the dynasty back in the day. I mean, it had not only a world and open guard, but I believe it had an A guard and then a little baby guard, an actual baby guard, where there were like, 5 to 8 year olds out there that would compete locally.
Yeah, I wonder whatever happened to that organization. It just that's a fascinating story. Like I've been talking with friends, and they're like, kind of, we should do like an episode on what happened to such and such guard, like Shock Tai and San Jose Raiders, like all these, Adagio, all these programs that just kind of like disappeared. Just Class that was out of Baltimore. I mean, I remember their last year around, but it's just like, what happened? Alliance Miami just gone, and
Yeah, well, with Raiders, I do know they had a building, their own bingo hall. And so it was very easy for them to raise funds and rehearse all within their own building. And that building ended up getting torn down. So I don't know what the specifics are behind that, but I do know that there just ended up not being a place that was easy to rehearse for them anymore. And it became a lot more complicated to run the guard.
gotcha. Yeah, and we know those bingo halls are super popular. I mean, everybody in Northern Lights did it for many, many years. Santa Clara Vanguard, I think infamous for their
Exactly.
bingo hall. I mean, a huge fundraiser. It's basically a way to do legalized gambling. So people were like, why do all these cores have bingo halls? Because you get all these old people in to burn all this money playing bingo, and you raise money. So the guard kind of seemed to be on an off and on schedule. So after like 98, was that like the last year of the drum corps sponsored? And then maybe the other Blue Devils you mentioned earlier kind of pop back up? Because I remember they silver medaled in '04. And we were talking before we were recording when you were with Orion, like
The open guard.
the open guard. Yeah, I don't know if that was Blue Devils drum corps or just kind of.
Yes, as far as to my understanding, yes, the open guard was part of the drum corps, but the world guard hasn't come back out since 1998. And I don't know the specifics about why they decided to fold it at the time. I would imagine it might have just been cost because it was so expensive to run both the drum corps and that.
Yeah, I'm sure. And just the time and stress. I mean, you're running elite groups on both sides. I mean, top tier groups. It's just, yeah, it's like, yeah, maybe we pick one, and the drum corps got the bigger history, so
Yeah.
we keep that one. Where is Blue Devils located in California? Because I don't know. The only California geography I know is San Diego's at the bottom, and you got like San Fran. That's about two-thirds of the way up. Where is Blue Devils like technically located?
I would say about, if you're talking about distance wise, it's in Concord, California, which is still in the Bay Area, but I would say it's about like 45 minutes to an hour away from San Francisco.
Okay. So they're more northern, right, than southern.
A bit, yeah, but not very far. I mean, you can, depending on traffic now, traffic can be really terrible. And I used to drive from the South Bay up to Concord, which is considered the North Bay, and it would sometimes take an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how bad traffic was, just to get to rehearsal. So that was when I was
Oof.
saying earlier that sometimes it can take a toll. You were also commuting for all that time, 5, 6, 7 days a week, sometimes depending on what was going on.
Yeah, and if you're commuting during the week, you're commuting with the typical workforce, that's commuting in. It's not like on a Saturday morning you get up and there's less cars on the road. It's no, I got to go on a Tuesday evening, everybody leaving work, and
I look back and I think, because I did that for years, and you couldn't get me to do that for the world today, to like sit in traffic for 2 hours all those days a week, just one way. It blows my mind what I went in order to just participate in the activity.
yeah, I mean, you were young, you had the passion for the sport. We all did it. We all did those crazy
Absolutely.
things of like, oh yeah, I drove 4 hours to rehearsal all the time. Now it's just like, hell no, no, I would not do that. I'll just march a local guard. It's fine. I don't need the prestige. It's fine. I'd
Yeah,
rather
I
have
think
my time.
that speaks a lot to how much the activity means to so many of us and what it gives so many of us that we're willing to go through so much work just to participate and be a part of a group that we love.
Absolutely. I know somebody who lives down in Richmond, Virginia, which is, it's about a good 2.5 hour drive from DC, and she marched Fusion up in upstate New Jersey, and she would take the train up every weekend. And she was in college, so she would do her work, her homework and assignments, but she's like every weekend I take the train up there. And I'm like, oof, dedicated.
Oh yeah, we had some people who would drive up from Fresno, so to that and that had to be, gosh, maybe about like 2.5 hours to 3 hour drive, if I recall correctly. It's been some time, but I can imagine doing that several times a week.
Yeah, couldn't do it. Not especially not during the week. Let's talk about some of the show specifics and your experiences at Blue Devils. So how did you actually get into the Blue Devils indoor color guard? Like what made you decide to go there and how did you get there?
I was absolutely hell-bent on auditioning for San Jose Raiders after high school. I loved them. They were like one of my favorite color guards. I must have watched videos of them an embarrassing amount of times, let's just say. And I was
There's
just
no embarrassing amount of time watching color guard. There's no embarrassing.
But then the guards had split. And so I wanted to be taught by that specific staff. And I decided, you know what? I'm just going to go and I'm going to audition and I'm going to try. And if I make it, then I make it. And if not, well, then I'll look at another avenue to march after high school. And luckily, I feel very fortunate that I made it.
That's awesome. I mean,
Thank
that's a big deal. I mean, it's like I'm just gonna go try and you make the top independent world guard. I mean, you didn't know that at the time, but I mean,
you.
at the end of the season, you're like, wow, I made this guard.
One of the things that was particularly a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Intimidating when you first walked in the door is that so many of those people that I marched in 1995 with, my first year at Blue Devils, were some of those people that I had grown up loving and adoring and thought that they were just like the best thing in color guard ever. And so to stand up and audition next to those people, it was quite anxiety inducing.
I believe it. I believe it. I think of like maybe like AMP nowadays because of how popular they are, and they have those standout spinners that everybody knows. I mean, could you imagine like going to auditions and you're sitting next to the guy who played the Joker? You're just like, dude, I'm like auditioning right next to this guy. Like, I know that was like his final year, but I mean, if you went back the next year, you'd be like, I'm legit like standing right next to this dude. Like,
You get starstruck. And I mean, it's within our own community, we have these stars, and they're like a little bit bigger now than they used to be back in the day, thanks to things like social media. You're able to kind of get to know who these people are and a little bit more about them. But back then there was a little bit of mystery as well. So it did feel almost like a celebrity because you didn't know those details and you only knew them in that setting.
right, you knew them from the videos. You're like, oh, that's that girl with the saber toss, or oh, that's that guy that does this. And that's all you know about them.
Exactly.
Why'd you only march 3 years? Did you age out, or did you just say I'm done? Or
No, I actually did have one more year. I would have aged out in 1998, which would have been a perfect bookend to all that since that was also Blue Devils last year. But it had just become very difficult to continue driving that distance the entire time and working a full-time job. So I
mm,
ended up giving up my last year in order to kind of focus on life. And I had started teaching by that point. And so to teach and march and work was very difficult.
Yeah, when you start to make those adult decisions, it's tough. I mean, I know a lot of people like once you age out of drum corps, you're like, all right, how many more years am I going to do indoor? I'm finishing up college. I know there's going to be some people struggling with that, and I know a couple kids that just keep going back every year, and I'm like, props to you. It's like I couldn't do it, but props to you.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm thankful for the age out at the time because I think maybe I would have been one of those people that would have ended up going back more years than I probably would have been healthy, let's say.
Right. It's an addiction. It's I would say it's a healthy one, but it's an addiction. I mean, this sport is addicting, just that adrenaline rush when you walk out on the floor to perform. I mean, I know some people love rehearsing. I hated it. I hated rehearsal. But you let me go out for a performance and yeah, it's electrifying. I love it. Like people always ask me, like, would you ever go back and march in like a senior guard or something like that? If we had one in Northern Virginia, I absolutely would because I miss performing. But then I'm like, but I don't want to rehearse for 6 hours. Yeah, I don't want to do all that.
Also, given my age, I don't know that my body could keep up anymore because the activity has evolved so much athletically. What the performers do today is just mind-boggling. Not just equipment, but the way that they move and the demands, just endurance-wise, that these
Yeah.
people have during it's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Yeah, the way dance has taken over the activity and just the way you're expected to move now. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think I would make the guards I made back in the day with with what people are doing now. Like I was a good spinner. Like I had the hands and you give me choreo, I can do it, but I am not the dancer. Like I am not, I can blend, that's the best I can do.
Same, same.
Did you ever have any interest in going back after the age limit was lifted? I know it was a few years after you aged out, so
It was. No, we don't have to say that many years, but you're
no, it
right.
wasn't that many. Because I
You're
think
right.
they lifted it for the 2001 season. I think is when they lifted it. 'Cause that's when that
Yes.
lady at Blessed Sack came back. She was like that 45-year-old lady that cracked that rifle six in the middle of the floor, and everybody was in love with her because they're like she was like, I'm coming back.
I believe, was her name Catherine? Because I remember watching in the audience and this woman screamed, "Go, Catherine," or something like that, or whatever her name was. I may have the name wrong, but
I'll find out. I'll ask Blessed Sack people because they'll know. Because
they,
she
they
because she marched a few more years out once she came back. So
that's right. Yeah, she was quite the superstar back in the day.
she was. Do you have a favorite year that you marched of the three?
I do. And I think I would have to say 1995. And I think it's just because it was my very first year in World Guard. I didn't know what to expect. I had no expectations other than just kind of getting in there and hanging. It was also that year that I got to march with so many of those people that like I said, I grew up loving and watching from so many different guards who were in so many of the shows that I loved. That year was pretty special.
Yeah, I believe I would say like, my first year at drum corps, I marched Kiwanis Cavaliers. We were 20th place or whatever. We were nothing special. But that's probably the year I look back on most fondly because it was my first experience doing that. So I could absolutely see that, you're marching with your idols, your celebrities, and you get a medal out of gold medal out of it. So
Absolutely. I mean, there were a small number of us that were brand new. And so we were kind of like the new guard, pun intended. And we became fast friends because we were sort of like this new generation that was coming in, all experiencing that same thing.
yeah, that's great. Are you on the videos? I mean, you said you're 6'7", so I think it'd be pretty easy to find on the video.
You can find me in the videos, particularly in 95 and 96. In 97, things are moving around a lot more. If you know where to look, yes.
The floor is also busier in 97, which makes it harder because let's review with the video is 30 years old. So you're looking at it on YouTube and it's really grainy. But that purple and white checkered floor, it's hard to make people out on that one.
Oh my gosh. I will say one thing I'm so jealous of younger performers is HD cameras. I mean, here it is like every year, WGI rolls around and you look for just those couple of photographs that you had when we didn't carry a phone with us all the time. And you just use like those same like 10 photographs that are great. But people today have like their 500 shots from, floor cameras. And I wish we had that back then.
Yeah, I have zero action shots from when I marched. So people, WGI week, everybody's changing their profile pictures and the DCI finals. And I'm like, I don't have anything.
Right. Same.
I don't have any. So it's like, oh, I did find you. I don't remember what year it was. I was watching it. I think it was the year at the end where everybody's kind of walking towards the front of the floor and it's kind of a close up shot. And then I'm just like, that's him. Like I just because you're just like towering over like
Yes.
a foot and a half taller than all the other
Oh,
performers. Like that's got to be him.
I'm also the very last person to go down. So when you see us all kind of like laying on top of each other, and I remember, if this isn't appropriate, you could cut this out.
No.
But when we were watching the video, some of the other members would be like, "The last queen."
We love color guard queens. We talk about queens all the time here. What was it like marching in the guard at the time? I mean, you win 3 years in a row. It was the color guard of the time. The incredible staff. I mean, we talked about the names, Scott Chandler, Sandy Knob, TJ Doucette. I mean, just to name a few. Did you march with any other big names we might know? Because you look back at like Escapade and you had Michael Gaines, obviously the director, but you had Rosie Queen that was marching there. You had Jenna Foe that marched. I mean, all these names. So were there those people that we would recognize now at Blue Devils?
There were, I think everybody probably knows Michael Rosales, right? He marched in 98, which was the year after I had left. But Michael was in San Jose Raiders before that. And so Blue Devils and Raiders did kind of have like this sibling, not a rivalry, but like we supported each other like brothers and sisters. We were sister guards. And so a lot
Hmm.
of members who were in there, Edmer Lazaro as well, a lot of those people who marched in those guards, we would hang out all the time, even though we weren't in the same color guard, you know?
What was it like when you won the third year in a row? Like, did you all know, especially with, we're going to talk about 96 in a little bit,
Okay.
just because, there was such a high score, but, with the White Rabbit year, I mean, was there like extra pressure getting to that third year? It's like we've won two in a row, especially with your sister guard winning five in a row prior to
Yeah,
that.
it was. I think to go back to 95 for just a quick second, that's part of what made that so special. Yes, of course, we were aiming to do the best we could and to win WGI if possible, but it wasn't something that it- at least in my experience, it wasn't something that I felt like was real. Like I knew I was doing it, and you know that that's the goal over there, but the reality of it hasn't hit you yet because you haven't experienced it yet, right? By 97, because and a lot of people may not know this, but in 95, we also broke the scoring record that year as well. And we were the first one since Cavaliers. I believe it was the highest scoring color guard since Cavaliers back in the 80s. And then to turn around the following year and to do it again, that really ramped up the pressure for 97. But it was such a competitive year in 97. I mean, ML Marquis was amazing. Pride of Cincinnati, that was the year they had all guys and they did Alcatraz. They were just, it was really an incredible year at WGI, and we didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, 97 was an incredible year. And of course, 97 kind of overall was the year of the giant props. And it was the year it was in Phoenix. So everybody had to travel. Pride of Cincinnati had those prison props and doing Alcatraz. Do you think Northmont bringing Dante's Inferno over to all the way from
Right.
all the way from Ohio? I mean, they probably saw it and we're like, crap, we gotta drive this all the way over here.
You know, you want to know something fun? I don't know if anybody else has talked about this in 97. There was actually an ice rink underneath, and they had just built over this like wooden platform over the floor. And then as we were leaving for finals, they were shooing us out so that they could take that up because they believed that they had a hockey game that evening.
Oh my God.
You lay down on the floor, like in 97, I started laying down out on the floor. You could feel the cold from the ice underneath from that floor.
That's cool.
So it was definitely a different year. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's a fun little story. But yeah, it's like, all right, guys, get out. I know you just won a gold medal, but we got a hockey game in 4 hours and we got to clean up. Wow, that's crazy. I think Milwaukee was last year. They did the traveling finals. That was 2001, and then they're just like, no, sorry, San Diego was 2004, of course.
Yes.
And then after that, they're like, what, we'll just stay in Dayton. So Dayton can house us. They know we're coming. I can't imagine trying to find a location that could handle WGI color guard specifically,
Oh yeah.
because I mean, so much, all those kids and buses and everything coming, and Dayton's just like, oh yeah, every April we expect it.
Exactly. And I mean, Dayton got to the point where they really, I believe WGI is one of the biggest events that happen in that town. So they ended up kind of rolling out the red carpet for them around that time. And there was just never a reason to leave after that.
Yeah, exactly. And all the infrastructure's there. I mean, I do think they could probably use another location just because schedules are starting to get a little tight and people are driving all over the place, but it's all there and everybody's used to it. So
Right.
it's one of those if it ain't broke.
Exactly, exactly.
But let's talk about Blue Devils 96, the summer times year, the highest scoring show of all time in WGI history with a 99.55. Pretty much as close to perfect as you're going to get. And Fantasia came really close to beating you all in 2008, score wise. They got a 99.5. And I'm sure the Blue Devils people were like, whew, that was close.
I'm not going to say that I was one of the people in the audience that did that, but yes, there were a few of us sitting together. You know what, though? I'm so shocked that Fantasia didn't outscore it, that I really think that show did deserve it, if ever a show did. They were just so inventive and original and talk about flawless. I mean, wow.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen it, it is out on YouTube. It's like a black floor. They're in all white. They have a white table and it's all weapon and just very, very, very well done. And then Avon on the Scholastic side had the 99.35. So they were pretty close too. But today, Independent World's on a different sheet. So I don't think you can truly compare those. But do you think the 99.55 will ever be broken?
I'm surprised it hasn't yet, to be honest, because the activity has evolved so much and the things that they are doing today, especially like choreography, the athleticism of the performers, I mean, the complexity of designs that we see, it's nothing like what we did then. But of course, we were groundbreaking at the time in what we were doing, but it's become a whole other animal. So I wouldn't be surprised if any day now we do see that.
Yeah, I think the thing that's holding it back is the cleanliness because, like you said, the way the sport has evolved, it's become so, especially choreography wise, so intense and so advanced that guards aren't as clean as they were in the 90s. So it's hard to, get that excellent score all the way up. I mean, yeah, you're blowing people out of the water with what you're doing, but it's, I mean, you look at 90s, late 90s color guard, I think that is the epitome and the apex of the activity. I mean, just the creativeness in the shows. You look at the Scholastic World side, and we talked about Dante's Inferno. You have Bishop Carney all those years, Center Grove, James Logan, and then you go to the Independent World side. I mean, it's just so many cool things, and everybody was clean. Everybody had a great flag feature, which I am here for. People don't do flag features anymore. Hashtag bring back the flag features, please.
That's
So
yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna be broken.
I don't know. You know what? I think that when and if that happens, I know 100% that group is going to deserve it more than anything.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, if I were to pick a group that I think could do it, I would say Paramount.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, what a great staff and just what a great program.
Yeah, I just think with the way that program is and the quality of the performers and the quality of the design, I think if they can click, have that year, I think they could do it. I think Paramount's the group to do it.
Oh yeah, that's a group of rock stars right
Yeah,
there.
no pressure, guys. Um, so what was the 96 season like? I mean, you'd set the score, you set the record at 95, you're coming back 96, it's your second season. And staff's like, okay, we're going to do the summertime show. How did that whole thing just kind of roll out for you all?
I believe first and foremost, we only had, I want to say, two people that were brand new to the Blue Devils color guard at that point. So it was either people who had marched in 95 or had marched that summer. So it was already a close-knit group of people. And one of the two new people that came actually marched San Jose Raiders before. So he also knew a lot of people. So we were all a really tight-knit group of friends. And sometimes that made things more difficult, and sometimes that made things easier. But it was a show that kind of evolved slowly. I believe the staff was kind of searching for what it was they were going to do. And they ended up playing with overlapping the different versions of Summertime. And then that sort of became like a spotlight for each piece of equipment. And that was something that hadn't been done in quite that way before at WGI, where the audio was almost like a spotlight on the stage. And the way that they mixed and morphed that and throughout was what made it such a groundbreaking show.
I watched it recently, obviously, because I wanted to make sure I was fresh in mind. I mean, because I've seen so many color guard shows, and I'm like, I remember they had like the slanted window props in the back and everything. Now you're talking about like the different voices, and I'm like, yeah, I remember because the opening was kind of like the operatic ish style.
So each piece, the opera version was to represent the sabers, and the jazz was to represent the rifles, and then the R&B version, which was actually a duet between two people, was to represent the flags. So even though there were other things going on, when that music is being played, that piece of equipment is usually a dominant piece on the floor.
Gotcha. And as I said, I watched the video and it is practically flawless, except for that poor girl at the end that grabbed the wrong color flag.
But that is actually intentional.
Is
So
it?
yes, and that's because when the song comes back in, it's that original R&B version, which is the original flag that we started out with that represents that song. So when they pull it back in, it's to pull back to the beginning of what that version of the song was representing.
I see.
The way they cut the video, it doesn't quite look as good, but I did.
No, because she comes out with a purple flag and then it just cuts
Yeah,
to like a close up of like people on the 50. And then when it zooms back out, she runs to the side of the floor to switch flags. So all you're thinking is she came out with the wrong flag.
yeah, I could see how it would look that way. And I don't know what in the world, I don't know who was editing that video that ended up having that go the way it did. It's not great, but you can see the prelims performance is up on YouTube as well. And that you can, it's a high cam the entire time, so you can see how it all unfolds as it should have.
Yeah. You know what? I'm a high camera. I do not like multicam, especially with Flow lately. That is my biggest pet peeve with them because they will focus on somebody squatting on the side of the floor while there's a beautiful flag feature happening. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why
Exactly.
why are you not showing me the flag feature? Oh God. Yeah. So and I remember back in the day, instructors used to be able to have input for the WGI edits, because like there's a show, I won't name names, but a performer had a very exposed solo and they dropped it in finals. So they cut in the prelims performance where they caught it and then cut right back to finals after that moment.
Oh
So,
yes, there were many. There were many, many groups that used to happen, especially in the early '90s. I know, well, I don't want to name names, but I do know that there are several people where it is a blended show from their two performances at WGI.
so yeah, that was a thing. And then you also had what was it? Was it St. Anne's the one year where they had two shows? One was prelims and one was finals.
Yes,
Can you imagine learning two shows and then just
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I don't remember the year. And was it Carmen or something like that? Or
Oh
I feel like
God.
it was like a major opera that they took music from.
Yeah, that sounds right. I remember watching. Well, first of all, can you imagine not just performing two shows? Can you imagine teaching two, designing two?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, for people listening, they legit had two complete shows. They did one in prelims and then did the second show in finals, and they were completely different. So go to WGI, you can't blend those.
I mean, you could, but would it make sense?
Yeah, they'd be like, well, people like, this isn't, I don't remember seeing this. This didn't happen. What was the reaction from like the guard and staff, and especially the audience when they announced your final score?
What I remember about that year is that we were scoring high early in the year, early in the season. And there was definitely that pressure, especially coming off of 1995, whether or not we would be able to do it again or get close to setting a high score. And in some ways, I wish that didn't happen because there was several shows where maybe we didn't have the best performance. And I think it's because we were all putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. But in the end, I think it all worked out and all came together. And what an amazing year to get to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, and you still hold the record to this day. We're approaching 30 years later. Not to age you, but that was
Wow,
1996 and it's now 2026. 30 years ago.
that's just nuts to me. Like, I still can't believe that that even happened, but 30 years is just a lifetime, literally.
It is. And Blue Devils holds the highest score for DCI as well. So y'all just snatching up all the trophies, all the records. So yeah, we talked about the scores 99.55. You were 3.5 points ahead of second place, which is, we talk color guard scores. People win by tenths, right? 2/10, maybe hundredths, to win by 3.5 points. I mean, that is just, you're lapping the field at that point. That's absolutely wild. Do you have any fun stories from your years at BD that maybe people would love to hear?
I could tell you one that not a lot of people know that Jay Murphy ended up telling us, and not the year that it happened, we ended up learning about this in 96. So, taking the floor in 95 finals, this is back in the day when all the music was on cassettes. And after you performed, you ended up getting judges' tapes, and they were often in a little bag off at the side, and your soundtrack was put in that bag. Now, the way Jay told us was that they put the soundtrack in with the cassette tapes for the judges' tapes. But between prelims and finals, he doesn't like to listen to the comments because what are you going to do at that point? So you just kind of have to, buckle up, knuckle down and go. Anyway, he goes to the sound guy right as we're getting ready to take the floor, and the guy's like, "Where's your soundtrack?" And Jay was like, "I didn't know what to say." So I was just like, "I gave it to you." And the guy was like, "No, you didn't." And so he was like, I had no idea what I was going to do. And he turned to TJ, who happened to have this big purse on her. And Jay made everybody keep a version of the music on them. And she just happened to dig through her purse and find this old ratty version that she had on her. But they had cut the music differently just a couple of weeks before we went to WGI. And so he had to give them that cassette and just hope that it was the right version.
Oh my God.
And so he said, I sat there in the stands watching you guys just kind of like freaking out until that part of the music went by and it was the correct version. And he said, if it
Whew.
wasn't for that, or even if TJ didn't have that music, he said, I would have just watched you guys sitting there waiting, getting penalties while I had to run out to the car in the parking lot and get the soundtrack and then watch you guys probably get 15th place because of how long it would have taken me.
That's crazy. Oh my, I would panic. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about that today because you submit it online and they have it on file. But I
I'm
mean,
so glad we didn't know about that on the day, though.
yeah, right? Could you imagine? I remember one year I was in high school and this was still when we were on cassette tapes. And that was back when you had to adjust the speed, right? They had a speed dial
Oh,
on the board and our music started playing and exaggerating a little bit, but it was like Alvin and the Chipmunks, like fat. We like you could see we all like panicked. Our instructor was like, "What are you doing?" So like the guy turns the dial and it switches to like Porter Wagner, like super super slow.
oh my God. That's
And so
the
our
things you have.
music is going up and down, up and down, up and down, and finally get leveled out. We had a terrible run because obviously we're high school kids, little local A class car that's freaking out because our music's going crazy. And then they're like, we get off the floor, and apparently they said to our instructor, you can do your show again if you want because you had music issues. And he was just like, I'm not putting them through that again. But we would have done it, but we would have been like, yeah, let's go perform again. But yeah, kids today, be thankful you don't have to do the cassette tapes or CDs and they start skipping.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Or what was it? You're talking about current issue. So it was Woodlands High School 3 years ago. They're at a Texas regional, and I guess they didn't have the file, so they connected their phone to these,
Oh
and
no.
the phone started ringing,
Of course. Of course it did.
and it was the standard like Apple like bass ringtone, and I'm like, this is part of their show, and then all of a sudden all the girls stop spinning and they're walking around. Olivia, if you're listening to this, you marched the show. You have to tell me about this incident. So she's gonna reach out to me about this because it was the How to Move year. I know it was. I was watching and I'm like, what just happened? And then they reset and I'm like, oh my god, they were using her phone and somebody called while they were performing.
That's awful. Awful.
Oh my goodness. So you come back 97, win one more year, White Rabbit year, which I think is another iconic year. The floor, the music, everybody loves that. And then you hang it up and call it a career.
There was a big change in the guard that year from members who had aged out. And so there was a large number of new performers that year. And one of the things that I loved about that year was not feeling like a rookie anymore.
Mm.
And sort of like being the mentor to some of the younger people that were there. And some of those, I mean, from every year, of course, I'm still in touch with a lot of the people that I marched with and became close with a lot of them. But some of the people from that last year are still some of my best friends today.
I love that. So let's fast forward to today. And I don't know if this is current. But like I said, I told you beforehand that I do some digging on people. I sound shady, like I sound creepy, like I'm like stalking your Facebook pages and stuff like that. But I like to go like seeing what people do. And I see that I don't know if you are still currently, but you spent some time as a journalist and you worked for The Advocate.
I did.
Do you still work for The Advocate?
I do not,
Okay.
but I'm still a journalist. I actually left The Advocate back in 2016. And so I actually work on the global news team for a company called RVO Health. And you might know our brand Healthline, medical news and health news today. But back in my Advocate days, I was an LGBTQ journalist talking about LGBTQ issues. And I was the entertainment editor there for many years.
Yes, because I did see that. I found some videos of you that you had the opportunity to interview some pretty famous people while you were there. So You have interviews with Rebel Wilson, Melissa McCarthy, Jason Statham, Rose Byrne, who didn't she just win a Golden Globe?
Yes.
I fangirled a little bit when you got to interview Heather Langenkamp. Like,
We will have to sidebar. I am a huge fan about that for that whole franchise and her in particular. Absolutely adore her.
yeah. So if you don't know who that is, so if you're a horror film fanatic, now see, I like horror films, but I can't watch them. Like, I like scary movies. I can't do gory movies, but I'm fascinated by the horror genre. And she is the original iconic final girl from Nightmare on Elm Street, Nancy Thompson. So you got to sit down and do like a nice little piece with her. That's really cool. That is
She was just amazing. And she would tell me some fun stories back when she was on the film and just some of the issues that she had with some of the other cast members. It was just fun. She was just like your favorite older sister. And she just sat down and kind of kikied with us. She was amazing.
Was she the coolest person you got to meet doing that job, you'd say, or was maybe somebody else?
I mean, she's one of my favorites. I worked there for a little over 5 years. And so I used to do red carpet interviews and cover things like the Oscars and the Emmys, all the big award shows. So I would always get nervous though, anytime there was somebody that I really liked or somebody that I admired for a long time. But I will say, I think one of the things that really served me well in that job was my time in color guard. And I think it's because I learned how to work with other people. I learned how to roll with the punches. And sometimes, especially in those situations, you would get thrown into the deep of the end of the pool and just have to figure it out. And, as many of us in color guard know, if something doesn't go the right way in the show, you've got to figure it out and keep going. You can't just stop. And
Got to recover.
exactly. I really, really have to give props to the people that taught me in color guard because those skills did transfer beyond the floor.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's like you said, it's one of the things you wouldn't think about it. Okay, I'm learning to spin a flag in a gym and, oh, okay, I learned how to recover from a drop. But yeah, life lessons you learn in the sport really do stay with you. And I can see that. I mean, an interview starts going south and you're like, I got to save this somehow. Like,
Yes. Or there were a couple times when I would be hosting for somebody's event, and I remember I'm not sure if you know who Troy Sivan is. Sorry, I'm sidebarring here, but
no, you're fully fine. Yes, I do know the name. So I will say I'm not totally current with things because I have young kids. So like my kids are getting a little older now. I'm in that 6 to 9 year old era. So
I got you. Okay. Well, when he was first coming up, he had a big event where he was debuting one of his videos, and he was going to have a live Q&A with an audience. And they had me come in and do the Q&A with him on stage in front of this big group of people. It was a small theater. They gave me no heads up except for that day. They gave me nothing to go on and just kind of shoved me out there. And so it was me, who was obviously like the oldest person in the room at the time. And then here's this emerging pop star, and then this room of teenagers, screaming teenagers. And I'm very thankful that I was just like, how is everybody feeling? And like that those color guard skills sort of kicked in. And I was able to like be the cheerleader and introduce him and get it going. And I don't know if I would have been able to do that if I had not had the experiences I had in guard.
to get the teen girls screaming and you're like, okay, I'm back in a gym. Okay, I know where I am. Like I know this setting. The girls are screaming at me. I just caught my toss. Okay.
Yeah, he just kind of went into that color guard instructor mode and it all worked out.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I like hearing like people's like cool stories of what they do because I don't do anything exciting. Like I'm a boring office job person, so I don't get to do anything exciting like that. So when people are like, oh yeah, I got to interview Nancy Thompson, or I get to do a Q&A with Troy Sivan, like that's really cool.
There were definitely fun parts of the job that I do miss. Covering health is a completely different arena, but I still feel really proud of it because I feel like at the end of the day, I'm putting something good out into the world. And couldn't we all use a little bit more of that these days?
Oh goodness, yes. Yes, we need some more positivity in the world. It's hard to come by these days. But we do want to talk about your other project, which is your book TWIRL, that came out in May of 25. And it is, I read this over the winter break. So I did read it and I read the whole thing in about a day. Like I burned through this book and I really enjoyed it. And, I'll be honest, going into it, I was like, I'll read it. I'm not like a romance kind of reader. I'm murder mysteries, who done it, those kinds of things. But I'm like, it's a color guard book. I'm going to read it. And it's advertised as a young adult rom-com set in the color guard world where it's Heartstopper meets Bring It On. What I like about the book is there's color guard in it, but it's not really not the main focus of the book. Like it's a
No.
very strong supporting part of the story, but we've seen people write books about their sports and it's just or their activities and that's all it is. And it's like we do this every day. We spin in a gym. Like give me something else to read, and this book does.
That was something I really thought a lot about because I wanted to make sure that the story was still something that was accessible to people that were not involved in color guard and to give them enough of a peek of it so that they understood what it was, especially winter guard. Because let's be honest, like people, a lot of people, they have an idea of what the color guard is like with the marching band, but they have no idea what a winter guard is or how involved it is, how theatrical it is. And I really wanted to capture that in the story without alienating people who didn't know.
Right. Yeah. We all know. Oh, yeah. You're the flag people out on the field. Like, yeah, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. And then you try to explain indoor, and you're like, okay, have you seen like the competitive cheerleading on ESPN? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, it's kind of like that. So we take our flags inside, and it kind of looks like that.
Oh yeah, I tried to explain it recently as almost like Cirque du Soleil meets color guard because I feel like that's the level that some of these groups have gotten to.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah. What inspired you to write the book?
I've always felt like I was a storyteller, whether that was through journalism or any of my other things that I've done in my life. I actually grew up in the library. My mom was a not in, I didn't live in a library, but my mom was a librarian. And so from the time I was 1 to 18, she worked in the library and I would spend more time than I probably should have there. But I fell in love with storytelling and stories and characters and comic books and just everything I could get my hands on. And so I've always wanted to be a writer, and there really haven't been any stories about color guard where they were sort of the sport at the center of things. And I thought, well, instead of waiting for somebody else to do it, why not do it myself? So here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, I love that. So the two main characters are Danny and Ethan, who march in separate high school scholastic world programs. So we'll talk a little bit about the book. I don't want to spoil too many storylines, but we'll touch on some things. So we'll get people a little tease so they can go read it for themselves. Um,
Absolutely.
how did you create the two characters and their teams?
So their teams, let's see. So Ethan is actually his team, Landon, is actually based on Logan. And so for Logan High School, a lot of those just sort of that dynasty, because I mean, 10 years in a row they won and they were just such a powerhouse program. And also, Ethan was sort of based on what I imagine some of the people I marched with who now have kids who now march in Blue Devils or in other color guards, what that must feel like for them living with the legacy of a parent who also marched in the same group and was successful. So that's how I created that. And then Danny's was that show is actually based on a version of Logan's TKO show. So I kind of wanted to tip my hat, so to speak, to a lot of the groups that I loved and adored, and some of those details from WGI history throughout. So if you're sort of like an eagle-eyed person or you're a color guard nerd, you might find a lot of those in there.
Oh, I definitely picked up on the Logan boxing show. I was just like, I was like, we talk about the uniform and the Everlast shorts, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I see the inspiration for this one, and I ain't mad at it.
Here is a deep cut too for the character of Ethan's show. It was like a star chart, and the music that they used, it was a Philip Glass piece. I actually was inspired by a show from Pope High School, and I believe it was 2001. But that's the music. I
Mhm.
actually looked it up. It's the same music, so it's a deep cut. But I really wanted to mix in real aspects of WGI history where I could without going too far.
I love that. Yeah. And I didn't pick it up in the book now, but when you talk about it, I'm like, he's going to say Pope. He's going to say Pope High School. I was
I
like,
love that you got that.
when you're like, it's a deep cut, I'm like, he's going to say Pope. So obviously, like you said, some of the characters and setting are taken from your personal experiences. It takes place in California. Were a lot of the side characters kind of based off of people you marched with?
And students I taught as well. Yes. In particular, I know that there's a character you said was one of your favorites, Sanjay. He's based on about three different people that I marched with, kind of crammed into one. So some of the sayings he would say, some of the his like snappy comebacks, that was definitely based on people that I knew.
Yeah, Sanjay's my favorite side character. Yeah, just very quippy and kind of like the comic relief of the book. The
Yeah.
book has some heavy moments. Nothing, it's not too heavy, but yeah, just there's definitely some good quips in there that made me laugh, like actually laugh out loud. Did you have any deeper connections to any of the characters when you were writing them? Like, did you like specifically connect with any specific character?
I think, and this is such a an author cliche thing to say, but I think there's a little bit in every character that you write. But I think maybe because I started the book with him and we go on such a deeper journey with him, I really feel connected to the Danny character, even though that's his life is not something that is remotely close to what I lived.
Yeah, Danny definitely has the heavier storyline, which we'll talk about in a second. Did you base anybody off like a personal ride or die friend that you might have had? Both Danny and Ethan have ride or die friends. So
Yes.
I was like, I wonder if this is like somebody he's like, I'm going to take this girl that I march with or this guy that I march with. I'm going to put them in the book.
Oh, they were definitely Sanjay is definitely a couple of people that I marched in Blue Devils with, crammed into one character. So yeah, and they were some of my best friends at the time, and one of them I'm still really, really close with.
I do love, like I said, it's not super color guard heavy, and you found the right amount to include without it being overwhelming and leaving plenty of space for the love story to blossom because it is a romance between the two main characters. But you also flesh out the main and supporting characters really well. Like I feel like you get a good idea of who everybody is without it being it's like an info dump, right? You actually connect with the characters and you learn things about them instead of just saying, "Oh, here's everything you need to know about Danny in chapter one."
Right.
I truly, truly love Danny's adoption subplot, which is we talked about him having a heavier storyline. So, he's adopted, he has two dads,
Yes.
and won't get too into it, but he does not have a relationship with his birth family. And it really resonated with me because I am an adoptive parent. Like I have two children that my husband and I adopted and different situations, but we talk with their birth mothers, but not their birth fathers. And I know reading the book, I'm like, I'm gonna get these questions that Danny is asking in the book. And going through our adoption process, that's something they've kind of prepped us for as well. It's like, you're gonna have to answer these questions as these kids get older. So it was kind of for me personally, it was fun to see here's an 18-year-old kid who's still handling this process of his I don't want to say his origin story, but like his
Sure.
like where he comes from. What inspired you to put in that whole storyline?
I think what was really important to me from the beginning was to have one of the sets of parents be LGBTQ. And I really wanted to showcase kind of the beauty of all families, right? So we don't often get to see gay dads unless they're like a joke on television or in
Mm-hmm.
movies. They're often like the comedy, the comic relief characters. And I wanted to just show an everyday family dealing with a lot of the problems or challenges that people in those situations do. And having a lot of my friends who have adopted as well and be in similar situations, I often would listen to them talk about their concerns about just such a thing happening. And so I wanted to sort of explore what that might be like and how they would be able to approach it with love and care and understanding when and if that did happen.
Yeah, and it's a difficult subject, and especially with adoption, not a lot of people know a lot about it. I can talk about adoption for hours, and I love when people they're like, "I don't want to pry." No, please, I love answering all the questions because I feel like it's people feel it's so taboo. You want to educate people to use proper language, because you always get the, "Oh, do you talk to their real parents?" Like
Yes.
that, like I'm their real parent. Like I change the diapers, I take care of the fevers, I do the nightmares. I'm the real parent, but it's like trying to talk about birth families and all of that. So I think that it's amazing that it's in the book because it is such a sensitive and less understood topic that I think people could use some exposure to.
Thank you. I'm really glad to hear that that resonated with you, knowing that you are in a family similar. I also really wanted to showcase how much work it is for people in those situations, or just for people who adopt at all, the level of things they have to go through just to start their family, and what some of the challenges they may face are that other people may not ever think about. And perhaps by showing what people go through in order to achieve that, some people might come away with a better understanding and be more empathetic in the future.
I agree. All families have a story. And especially with adoption, usually adoption's not the first choice. Even with gay men, I mean, surrogacy tends to be the first choice, because you want to have some sort of biological connection. My husband and I discussed it briefly, and then we're just like, then you're talking about, all right, who are we going to use? And then you got to find somebody, then there's just a whole
Yeah.
huge mountain of things you have to go through there, just like with adoption. But, and like I said, I could talk about this for hours, so I'm not going to. But if anybody wants to talk about adoption, I'm happy to. Send me a message. We can talk all you want. I will tell
That's
you
the
all my
podcast.
stories. So let's get back to talking about the actual book about B. Another thing I loved about the book was the pacing of it. We get the alternating perspective. So if you read it, one chapter is Danny, the next chapter is Ethan, and we just go back and forth throughout the book. And I love that something happens, and then the next chapter we fast forward just a little bit. Like it doesn't take place like right at the same exact moment. So I feel like the story is continuously moving. So that's what helps make it such a quick read.
Thank you. I was a huge, I say was, I still am. I'm a huge comic book nerd. And one of the things that I loved about that format growing up reading it was that sort of cliffhanger, these small bits that were a cliffhanger that led to the next thing. And that was definitely something I thought about as I ended each chapter. Where can I end it to where it's almost like that, wait till tomorrow's episode, or, in next month's issue, you got to wait 30 days for this. And so that was definitely something that I thought about as I was writing the story.
God, can you remember back in the day waiting like a whole month to get the next part of the story?
Oh my
And
God.
and, and people complain now they have to wait like a week for Netflix to release the next chapter or something. We had to wait a whole month to get a 20-page comic book, and then you had to that you read in like 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Were there any other situations or events in the book that you kind of pulled from real life? I mean, there are certain things that happen within the book to each of the teams. Like, did you kind of pull from any, maybe in your teaching experiences or marching experiences?
100%. There are so many things in there that I pulled from either when I was marching or when I was teaching. This will tie back into a fun, well, I don't know about fun, but a Blue Devil story. In the book, when Ethan and Danny are on a date, Danny is talking about how he had a really bad show one time and the specifics of that, about how he stepped on the flag and then it flew like a javelin. That actually happened to me in Blue Devils 1996. We were performing at a regional in Fresno, and the team I taught was there to watch, and I was extremely nervous, and everything was going great. And all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. I stepped on the silk and was running at the time, and then went to yank it, and somehow it came out of my hands and flew across the floor like a javelin from one end to the other. And I was just running with hands outstretched like E.T., the extraterrestrial, like running after it. And then when I got my hands on the equipment, I turned around and they were doing completely new choreography I had never seen before. At least that's how it felt, because I was so flustered. And it was just one of the most embarrassing moments I ever had as a performer.
That we can look back and laugh at now.
Yes. Even there is another part where one of the members is injured in rehearsal, and that came straight out of a time in Blue Devils where this was in 96, was in the wrong place at the wrong time, or somebody else was, and the next thing I know, a flag came across my nose. And I saw stars, and my first thought, and this was just a run through a rehearsal, my first thought was, I have to finish the run through. And then all of a sudden, my nose started bleeding. And my thought after that was, well, I can't get blood on the floor. So it wasn't like, am I okay? It was, I need to finish the run through and I can't get blood on the floor. But I remember afterwards, they ended up having another member drive me to the hospital. And it was the person that hit me in the nose. And then as we're getting in the car, he was a smoker at the time, and he pulled out and he lit up a cigarette and he said, "Girl, I know this is wrong, but I just need to calm down." And I remember having like this wad of tissue all bloody against my nose, and I'm like, "You need to calm down." So even though it's different in the book, things like that did definitely influence moments that I ended up writing into it.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I did that myself in high school. I got 5 stitches the day before championships. I hit myself in the. I did it to myself though. I tossed my rifle. My left hand came down, missed the end of the gun. It kept rotating, and right
Ugh.
there, day
That's
before
just
championships.
Yeah, I think those kind of when those moments happen, it was always more scarier as a teacher, as a coach, than it was when it happened to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was teaching at a school and I was not told that a student had a condition where she would faint. So I'm teaching work and she literally just flops on the floor in front of me. And all the rest of the guard is like Emperor's New Clothes to them. Like, oh, she's fine. And I'm just like, is she dead? Like, what just happened? Like, I mean, because she was just literally just and it literally just dropped. And they're like, yeah, that's what happens. And I'm like, you could have told me about this.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to call 911. Everybody's just like, hey, you okay, girl? Like, I'll just get her to the side. All she needs is some water. I'm like, oh my God. You know,
See, it's
oh,
another way color prepares you for things that happen in real life.
right. So I do have kind of a fun question. So with the recent explosion of heated rivalry that has taken the world by storm, has that sparked any extra interest in your book? Or, it's kind of like, maybe kind of like, hey, you like heated rivalry? This is nowhere near as racy, but here's
Oh,
another
not at all.
story.
Well, and actually, I say that like Twirl, my book is sweet, while Heated Rivalry is spicy. So
There you go.
I did want to write it in a way that younger people could read and parents wouldn't need to worry about what's in it. So I feel great that if you're like 50, you could read this, and if you're 14.
Yeah,
So
I've read it. I can attest there's nothing graphic in it, I promise. So
because there are so many other stories out there where if you want something spicy, that's out there and it's available, but there aren't necessarily stories that are available for younger people, especially about color guard. There aren't any stories about color guard out there. So I wanted to make sure that this could reach a broader audience. But to your point about heated rivalry, I do love that a story that is centered on two males, an MM romance, is getting so much attention and is hopefully breaking down doors and barriers.
I've seen so many comments about it of just how people love it. Even straight men are watching it. They're like, I watch it with my wife and I love it. If it's, it works for me. If it gets you watching and it gets people accepting. But what I love about it is it's just there's no like trauma associated with it. Because generally, with gay stories, it's always one of them has AIDS or somebody gets gay bashed or, they have they're shunned by their family. They don't have parents that, so there's always like some trauma in there. And I liked with heated rivalry, that isn't there. I mean, there are hardships, but
Yeah,
it's not trauma. And same with, you said twirl is sweet, but same. There's hardships, but there's no like real trauma there.
right. It's closer to like I would say Heartstopper than heated rivalry. But what I did mention the same thing to my husband the other day when we were watching it. I said, you know what's great about this show is how the women characters are so supportive. And even when one of the characters, no spoilers, is telling her about himself, she doesn't freak out. She doesn't shame him. She tries to get him to accept himself. And I think that having those messages out there is wonderful not only for LGBTQ people, but for straight people as well, because I think that when behavior is modeled in a way, it shows them that it's not such an unusual thing.
Absolutely. Any plans for a sequel?
Funny you mentioned that. I do have a new book coming out March 6th.
Oh,
Corner. It's not a sequel to Twirl, but it is a prequel in the sense that it's about one of Danny's fathers when he was in high school. And it's a 1980s period piece set in 1988. It's his coming out story. So it's a very different time. He's a big comic book nerd. And so a lot of his story revolves around his love of comics and his knowledge of comics and his friendships within that.
how fun. Do you have a date yet or just March at this point?
March 6th. It'll be Friday, March 6th, and it's called Before You Can Fly.
That is awesome. Oh, I'll have to, is it available for pre-order now?
Not just yet. It will be in the next couple of weeks, though, and I will shout it out from the rooftops.
Okay, and I will repeat it for you. I'll help you shout it out to the
Thank
rooftops.
you so much.
Well, that's all I've got for you today. If you haven't read Twirl, please go and do it. It's available. I got the Kindle version. It's available paperback. You can get it
Amazon,
definitely.
Barnes& and Noble, Apple Books, pretty much anywhere you can order a book from, it's on there. And I also want to say for people who are going to WGI, I'm actually going to be at WGI with a booth there at the expo. So I'll be signing copies of Twirl, and I would love to meet some people there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Yes. So yeah, I won't be there, but wish I could, but I'm going to the Indie Regional instead. So I was just like, I can't swing Dayton this year, but I was like, I can do the Indie Regional. So, but maybe I can get an autographed copy some way else.
I'd be happy to.
But before we do, I do have a couple final questions for you. So I've been doing a favorite WGI show, but since we're entering a new season, I'm going to do kind of a quick 3 question survey. So you're my first guest that gets to answer these new questions.
All right.
So nothing too hard, but first one, indoor or outdoor?
Oh, definitely indoor.
Rifle, saber, flag, or dance?
Ooh, I think I would have to go with rifle.
And then if you could march one currently active world program today, who would it be?
Ooh, I would say Pride, since they're not active. I would say Paramount.
Paramount. Excellent choice. Excellent choice.
I'll also add for a favorite show, I love, and speaking of deep cuts, San Jose Raiders 1989, the Patty Hearst show. That was my absolute favorite show of all time. It's just bonkers. It's crazy. I felt like 95 was sort of like a version of that I got to do. I loved it.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, once again, I thank you for your time. And if you haven't checked out TWIRL, definitely do so. I will leave a link in the show notes for where you can find the book. And I will also have links to the Blue Devil shows that we talked about. And I thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Eric, thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a wrap on today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it as it was something a little bit different. The competition season is officially starting, and I wish everyone all the best of luck and all the best of weather. I'm hoping no snow for you all so you can get out and put your shows out on the floor for all the audiences to see. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode, and then immediately the week after, as all the regional recaps will be starting then. So until next time, stay safe, stay fabulous, and remember, at the end of the day, it's just flags in a gym.